Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about Waukesha engines, how Oliver ultimately chose Waukesha for the fleet lines, and a little bit of history about Waukesha. So here's a Waukesha in my little Oliver 60, little 4-cylinder. So I'll talk a little bit about the history of them. The Waukeshas used in Oliver tractors were a joint effort between Oliver and Waukesha. Oliver designed the engines to meet their own specs. So the way that Oliver wanted them is the way Waukesha built them. Oliver would pour the castings in our Charles City, Iowa plant, and from there the engine parts were sent to Waukesha for machining and assembly. Oliver used about a half dozen different engine builders throughout the years, with Waukesha being the most common. As with many companies, Waukesha started out with a couple of guys in a garage. In the early 1900s, Harry Horning and Fred Ahrens liked to tinker with engines. Harry and Fred were friends and met at work. Harry was head of the mechanical engineering department of the Modern Steel Structural Company in Waukesha. He worked on a Duluth Superior aerial lift bridge. It was at this firm that he met Frederick Ahrens. The owner of their steel firm hired them to keep his boat motor running. They were on the Pewaukee Lake, which is an outskirts of Milwaukee. Engines at this time were temperamental and finicky. So you gotta remember, this is way back when internal combustions were just starting out. It was this that got them tinkering with engines. And here's an interesting fact. On another nearby lake, Ole Evinrude was with his girl and she wanted a dish of ice cream on shore. So he had to row to shore, get ice cream, and by the time he got back, the ice cream was melted. So this got Ole thinking there must be a better way of propelling a boat than oars. A year later, 1907, Evinrude outboard engines were born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's interesting how two lakes on the same year, same area, would be the start of two huge engine companies. I'll put a picture up of where they are on the map. They're really close together. In 1906, they picked up a third partner, James Remington, and started a garage they planned to manufacture gas engines. Remington was actually just a 16-year-old hired hand. He was hired to wash cars and just do odds and ends around their Blue Front garage. He shared a passion for tinkering with engines as well. A little story about their garage. It was labeled as a detail and tune-up garage. So customers would take their cars to their garage for a detail, and then the partners would basically spend all night tinkering with it, and when the customer got it back, it ran better. So the word got out, and a lot of people were bringing their stuff there, and that's how they got into building their own engine company. And the customers didn't realize that they were bringing their cars as guinea pigs to their detail shop. So after making a huge investment in designing and building their own engine, in 1909 they outgrew their garage, so they built a factory on St. Paul Avenue, which is still the current location in Waukesha, Wisconsin. During World War II, 1939 to 1945, Oliver was designing the Fleet Line series. They actually went to Continental to supply them with engines. Oliver told Continental they would need 25,000 engines. Continental could only supply 15,000 engines because of an order they already had with Henry Kaiser to be used with his cars. Because of this, Oliver turned to Waukesha. Henry Kaiser was the man responsible for building the Hoover Dam during the Great Depression of the 1930s. And if you keep up with World War II and that era, FDR put together a team. He was trying to get America back to work and pull them out of the Depression. So the Hoover Dam was one of the big projects to give work to thousands of people. He's also the man hired to build the ships for the war effort that ultimately led America to win the war. After the war, he partnered with Joseph Frazier to make cars at Ford's Willow Run factory in Michigan that was previously used to build the planes for the war. So that Willow Run factory was making Henry Kaiser's cars, and that's the cars that Oliver lost out on Continental through. One thing you won't see is Waukesha's name cast anywhere on an Oliver block. This is actually a requirement of Oliver. They did not want their customers going to Waukesha for parts, as Oliver wanted that business. So it's kind of like now if you buy a John Deere lawnmower, you know, a lot of them have Kohler engines, Kawasaki engines. So if you need a fuel filter or an engine part, do you go through John Deere or do you go through Kohler? And it's very similar to that. Oliver soon became Waukesha's largest customer. By 1958, Oliver had purchased 224,677 engines from Waukesha. There were 5 Waukesha 12-cylinder diesel engines powering backup generators of the World Trade Center before 9/11. So they actually saved lives because they kept the power on when that happened. Today, GE Energy owns Waukesha, and on September 28, 2015, GE announced it was closing the plant in Waukesha and moving operations to Canada. In November 2018, INNIO completed the acquisition of GE, and the transaction included Jenbacher and Waukesha product lines. Currently, they seem to be mostly building huge engines for oil rigs and other companies. I'll put up a picture of their website and what you see coming out of there, what they're building now. I really don't see a whole lot of small engines or anything like that anymore, but